My name is John Weiss, and I'm an attorney with the firm of Gilpin Gavan, representing hospitals and healthcare providers with respect to governance, compliance, and transactional matters. Today I want to talk briefly with you about the fiduciary duties of hospital trustees and directors. So you are a hospital director or trustee. Well, if you've been at it for any time at all, you know that it's not like serving on the local United Way campaign or even a local community board. Complex healthcare systems require dedicated and knowledgeable directors at the helm. You were chosen as a director because you represent the community that your hospital serves. You also bring particular abilities and expertise to help with the governance and oversight of a facility that provides critical health care to your community. Also a facility that is probably the largest or the second largest employer in your community. Hospital directors have important responsibilities related to the hospital's compliance with an infinite array of rules, regulations, guidelines, and other requirements from an alphabet soup of governmental agencies, including HHS, CMS, DOJ, OIG, OCR, and the IRS. Directors should carry out their various responsibilities consistent with three fiduciary duties to their hospital. First, the duty of care. Second, the duty of loyalty. And finally, the duty of obedience. First, let's talk briefly about the duty of care. The duty of care requires that the director act in good faith. With that level of care, an ordinarily prudent person would exercise in like circumstances and in a manner that they reasonably believe to be in the best interest of their hospital. So there are three components to the duty of care. First, the directors act in good faith. Usually this focuses on whether the matter at hand involves improper financial benefit for an individual or whether there is any intent to take advantage of the hospital corporation. Secondly, the director is to act with that level of care of an ordinarily prudent person. This focuses on the exercise of the appropriate level of due diligence to allow the board to make an informed decision. Directors must be aware of what's going on around them in the healthcare industry and must, in appropriate circumstances, make such reasonable inquiry as an ordinarily prudent person would make in similar circumstances. Finally, directors are to act in the best interest of the hospital. This focuses on acting in a manner that the director reasonably believes is in fact in the best interest of the hospital. This normally relates to the director's state of mind with respect to the matters under consideration. This is also similar to the duty of loyalty that we'll discuss in a moment. Most courts apply what is called the business judgment rule in determining whether a director's duty of care has been met with regard to various board decisions. The rule provides, in essence, that a director will not be held liable for a decision made in good faith, where the director is disinterested, is reasonably informed under the circumstances, and rationally believes the decision to be in the best interest of the hospital. If these elements are met, then the director has satisfied the duty of care. A director's duty of care arises in two distinct contexts. First, in the context of decision-making functions. This involves the application of the duty of care principles to specific decisions or board actions. This can include decisions like approval of compensation packages, approval of contracts, approval of various transactions. Secondly, this duty arises in the context of the board's oversight functions. This includes the application of the duty of care principles with respect to the general activity of the board in overseeing the operations of the hospital, making sure that the corporate executives are carrying out their responsibility in accordance with applicable law. The primary focus in your oversight responsibility deals with hospitals with corporate compliance. The leading case in analyzing the duty of care in oversight of the hospital's compliance policies is the Caremark case. In that case, the court held that a director has two principal obligations with regard to the oversight function. Directors have a duty to attempt in good faith to assure that, 1, a corporation information and reporting system exists, and 2, that this information and reporting system is adequate to assure the board that appropriate compliance information will come to its attention in a timely and regular manner. The duty of care should not be interpreted to require a director to exercise proactive vigilance or to ferret out corporate wrongdoing, absent a particular warning or other red flag. However, the duty to make reasonable inquiry increases when suspicions are aroused or suspicions should have been aroused. If you are presented with indications of financial impropriety, self-dealing, fraud, or government investigation of some sort, more direct inquiry will be appropriate. Absent such suspicions, conduct, or events, directors generally may rely on the executive leadership of the hospital in the operation of the facility. The second fiduciary duty we want to discuss is the duty of loyalty. The duty of loyalty requires that the director discharge their duties in a manner that the director reasonably believes to be in the best interest of the hospital. A director's duty of loyalty arises in several contexts. The first context is the context of corporate opportunity. The duty of loyalty prohibits directors' participation without prior disclosure to the board in a transaction or opportunity which the director reasonably should know may be of interest to the hospital. The second context is confidentiality. The duty of loyalty requires that a director maintain the confidentiality of all information regarding activities of the hospital unless that information has been disclosed to the public. Again, that's all information, not just financial information. The third context is conflicts of interest. The duty of loyalty prohibits involvement of director in situations where the director's judgment may be influenced by conflicting interest. A conflicting interest may include a beneficial interest or other link to a transaction that is of a financial significance to the director or a relative of the director, such that the interest would reasonably be expected to influence the director's judgment. Now, we could spend a whole session talking about conflicts of interest, but the objective here is to point out the duty of each director to avoid participation in discussions or votes dealing with matters in which he or she may have a conflict. The third fiduciary duty we want to discuss is the duty of obedience. Though many think the duty of obedience applies only to exempt hospital boards, it also has bearing for governmental hospital boards and for-profits. The duty of obedience requires that the director ensure that the hospital is operated in accordance with its stated charitable purpose and mission and in accordance with the hospital's organizational documents. A director's duty of obedience may arise in various contexts. First, the context of furthering the charitable purpose. Hospital boards for exempt entities should view all decisions through the filter of, does this decision further our charitable purpose? For example, any joint venture should be entered into in furtherance of the hospital's charitable purpose with appropriate safeguards to ensure that the hospital's charitable purpose and mission is furthered by the venture. Second context deals with the promotion of health. Frequently, for-profit and not-for-profit hospitals have mission statements with phrases such as to promote the health of the community or to provide the highest levels of health care. If your mission statement contains such language, the directors have a duty to ensure that the facility adheres to that mission and provides the levels of care stated in the mission. Finally, I'd like to review several best practice suggestions for good governance. First, does your hospital have a corporate compliance program? What is and how to implement a corporate compliance program is well beyond the scope of this session. However, it is important to note that compliance programs are not optional following the Affordable Care Act. They are mandatory. Material non-compliance with applicable rules can result in substantial risk to your facility, including recoupment of improper payments, non-payment of improper claims, fines, penalties, and other sanctions. Oversight of your hospital's compliance program is a central component of your duty of care. Second, does your hospital have a conflict of interest policy? A formal conflict of interest policy is required for nonprofits and is recommended for all hospital boards. Conflicts of interest can be particularly problematic in a hospital board setting, where physicians frequently serve as directors and have to separate their personal interest and their personal business interests from the interest of the hospital. Similarly, community leaders serving as directors may also serve on other community boards. They may be employed by other entities, or they may own other businesses that have dealings with the hospital. Any interest which may reasonably prevent a director from acting in the best interest of the hospital should be viewed as a conflict. A functioning conflict of interest policy is key to your duty of care and your duty of loyalty. Third, does your hospital have a compensation policy? That is, a policy on how the board determines executive and physician compensation. The IRS asks all exempt hospitals whether they have such a policy on the Form 990, and conformity with the rebuttable presumption of reasonableness is highly recommended. If that's a term that you're not familiar with, talk with your hospital counsel about what is necessary to comply with the requirements of the presumption. Fourth, does your hospital have a joint venture policy? In an environment of affiliation and combination of various healthcare providers, some form of joint venture with another provider is likely for your hospital. It's recommended that the board consider adopting general guidelines for such arrangements in the form of a formal joint venture policy. A joint venture policy is key to satisfying your duty of loyalty and your duty of obedience. In conclusion, it's important to remember that the board's role is oversight and direction, and not day-to-day management or operations of the facility. With that in mind, however, it's important for directors and trustees to be engaged, raise questions, participate in the meetings, be experienced, use your particular expertise in your oversight role, be informed, learn the particular risk and compliance issues that face your hospital. Be involved. Attend compliance and board training. I hope it goes without saying to attend board meetings and committee meetings. And finally, be adaptable. Recognize changing healthcare delivery and reimbursement issues that impact your hospital. This concludes our review of the various fiduciary duties of hospital trustees and directors. I hope this session has been helpful to you in fulfilling your responsibilities as a director or trustee of your hospital. Thank you.